If you like what we do here over at Aircrew Interview and would like to support us and help us grow, you can head over to our Patreon channel at patreon.com/aircrewinterview, where you can donate monthly. We have different tiers ranging from $1 per month right up to $25, with each tier offering different rewards. All the monthly donations greatly help us to continue creating these video and audio interviews, so please take a look and I thank you in advance. Enjoy. And then while you were based at Lake and Heath in 1999, you had a pretty eventful evening, didn't you? Could you share this with us?
Yeah, I did. They had that whole, we'll avoid the politics and all the stuff about the campaign of Operation Allied Force, because there was a lot going on in that part of the world. But, now nobody wants to see war, obviously, because there's bad stuff. But there was bad things happening anyways. Regardless, our leaders put us there, right? I mean, NATO and the U.S., we decided to get involved. So at the end of the day, we just went and did what we were told to do, basically. And, so we were deployed out of Italy, which was a really cool deployment, minus the war part of it, because, hadn't been to Italy before, and the food was good, and we lived near a beach and a hotel. And I mean, it was a really cool setup, and the folks were really friendly. Mm-hmm. So I enjoyed that part. So, yeah, March 24, 1999, that was the first day of Operation Allied Force when the aircraft got involved. I'm sure there were ground things happening that we didn't know about, but aircraft got involved, and I was fortunate enough being the weapons officer still. They would just hand it off to a brand new weapons officer, but he just got there, didn't know the squadron. So, of course, I'm planning everything kind of from that perspective. And we had 4 F-15s up north going into Serbia. We had 4 down south, and we had 2 big strike packages. So we had 2 pushes, if you will, that very first night, in from the north and south side times 2. So, but they were separated by obviously a number of hours. And there was a lot of kind of surreal things, because I've been in Iraq a lot, and every once in a while they toss a surface-to-air missile or something, but not a big deal, right? And this was a little different, because this was like a real country that was intact. Its infrastructure was there. The Serbs are not known. I mean, they know how to fight. I mean, they're good fighters. Their equipment was just, not as up to par as ours was, or the mass numbers that we had control. So I don't take anything away from the Serbs, because I said they're tough. If they had the same equipment, or more things to their advantage, it would have been a heck of a lot harder fight for sure. Plus, I give them kudos. They're defending their country, right? I mean, we'd all do the same thing if we had, because we're attacking their country, right or wrong or whatever. You get it, but they're, got it. They're defending their country. That's what they're supposed to do. I would have done the same thing. Mm-hmm. So we had, specifically for where I was down south or up north. I had 4 F-15s, 4 F-16 CJs, was shooting the HARM missiles back at the surface-to-air missiles, playing that little game. And we had 2 B-2s that were coming in all the way from the United States, and they were flying from the south side of the country all the way across it to the north. And we were kind of, the Southern Force ship with its strike package of aluminum jets was going to kind of hand off the B-2s halfway across the country to us, and then protect them there. And then we had 10 F-117s. They were still flying. So that was our strike package up north. We were the stealth package.
Wow,
except for
that's a lot.
8 F. Yeah, it was. Other than the 8 F-15s and F-16s total, because we were the chum, right? They can see us and shoot us, but they can't see the other guys. That's part of the theory. So we pushed in from Hungary and went south towards Belgrade, and that's where most of our targets were at. And we were out in front of everybody, because that's the F-15's job. And we kind of got to the very first cap, which is just north of Belgrade, and we had 4 of us. We were split apart, because it's all nighttime, so it's dark. And we're in a trail formation, so, 3 to 5 mile trail is kind of what we did back in the day. Mm-hmm. Don't do that anymore, but we used to. And because we didn't have data link, we didn't have MVGs, we didn't have any of the fancy tools that you have now for all this stuff to make it much easier to employ that way. And so we got to the very south edge of our cap, our combat air patrol, and we kind of did our first spin. And as I turned around on that, F-16s are getting close, F-117s right behind them. You don't know that, other than they're getting close, timing-wise. And I saw the first little blip on the radar, and it was out of Batajanica, which was their MiG-29 base out of Belgrade. And so locked it up. It was 150 knots, 1,500 feet, just taking off. I'm sure, I know it was their pilots, their MiG-29s alert scrambling as soon as they knew we were coming into country. So those guys are hopping in their jets and firing up to take off. And he turned around about 35 miles, and I kind of track him down the scope for a bit, and I lock him, at the appropriate range, say 25-ish miles or so, and start working the electronic ID, because there's a number of things we had to fulfill to say that he was a hostile, somebody that we could shoot at. And I did all that, and we got a lot closer. We were probably about 14, 15 miles apart. Finally got the ID, called it out on the radio, and took the first shot, which was an AIM-120, and then followed up very shortly after because it was active. We were so close, it was active off the rail. Switched over to AIM-7 because we had 2 AIM-7s, 4 AIM-120s, and the AIM-7's got a big warhead. And you hope it really does, takes care of the problem if the aircraft's still working. And plus, I'd always wanted to shoot one. So there was one of those kind of things as well. I'm like, hey, I can shoot as many as I want here because this is combat. And we also had a philosophy, typically always shoot 2 because missiles miss. They're not Hittles, they're missiles, right? They miss a lot. And our peak is like 60% or something, whatever. X number of missiles aren't going to hit. So something's not going to work. The enemy's going to maneuver. It's going to get jammed or whatever. So you always try to shoot a couple to up the probability of a kill. I did that. And off they went. And staring at Belgrade in the background, pretty cool because it's a VFR night, so crystal clear, lights of the city in the background. And I'm just watching the missiles go, and they get to about 5-6 miles, and the aircraft's breaking into the beam on me. And I watch the first missile time out. About the time the second one times out, I don't see a fireball. I'm like, uh-oh, switch over back to an AMRAAM, shoot a third one. And now I'm diving down towards him, and he's kind of, in a corner to me, turning. When that last missile comes off at about 5-ish miles, he breaks out of the beam, starts to kind of come merge head-to-head. And we're about 1.5 miles, 2 miles apart. The missile, which I'm just watching the motor because I can see it burn. So I can't see him with the eyeballs. I'm just watching the missile. I'm looking outside, and the missile motor from that little orange goes to big fireball. And so I'm like, God. All right, so I call splash on the radio and kind of watch it spiral, down towards the ground. You never know what happens to the pilot. You find out after, all the things are over, they had to pick him up, and he survived. Okay. I believe only one pilot of the ones that were shot down died, and they told us, based on, what they had for intelligence assets gathering information, that the only one that actually died was, I believe, one of them died during the ejection in that 2v2 daytime a couple days later that we had, and one of them might have died because they believe one of their own aircraft was shot down by a surface-to-air missile.
Right. Yeah.
So I even have the interview from the guy that I shot down from the Yugoslav press. It's kind of funny because all the timing matched. So, but I watched that one and came off of that and went back to the back edge of my cap, and came back around and watched the next guy take off. I'm like, oh boy, here we go again. Now the strike package is around us. So this looked exactly like the first one. Everything was the same except this guy went into that kind of that sideways maneuver, that beam very early, and I was up at high altitude because the strike package is below me, and we're not really supposed to dive down there. So I'm like, ooh, okay. So I kind of stay up high and I don't get down low, and I can't fulfill all the ID requirements at the time. And this was something I found out after the sortie was over. I was screaming on the radio to folks, about ID, lack of friendly, some of the electronic stuff. And F-16s and F-15s were looking at this guy as well. My other 2 Eagles were. And nobody could get an electronic ID. The F-16s couldn't do lack of friendly, looking for the IFF codes on them. We could, and I was I was listening to the F-16s because I knew 2 of the guys on the radio, and they were asking for that call. And I made that call like 5 times on my radio. You listen to my tape, the radio's like making this squelching sound. It was jamming itself. And so about 75% of my comm that I put out that night, nobody heard, which I had no idea, right? They just being quiet, I guess, or everything's all calm and good. And so all of the Eagles and Vipers, I ended up right over the top of the guy, like at 35,000 feet, and he's at 10 with my 2-ship. And everybody else had to turn around and run away because nobody could ID him to get in there, and you can't get in there at night and turn with somebody. So this one little MiG-29 is like everybody's running away from him, all 8 of us, right, trying to get separation. One of the F-16s got a spike, may or may not have been from the MiG-29, turned around, ran up for a while. Anyway, so I kind of get over the top of him, and I kind of do a spin. AWACS tells me there's another MiG-29 to the south. I'm like, son of a gun, where are they coming from? So I turn around, and this whole package with that MiG-29 keep going north, and we drive right over the northern edge of Belgrade, nothing on the radar at all. We can't see a thing. Come to find out later, AWACS is pretty infamous for calling ground traffic because they have filters, and if they have the filter set low, a BMW doing 100 on the highway can pop up as an aircraft and they can call it out.
Yeah.
I'm not. It happens, and they're getting excited in the moment with things happening. So they were calling it out as traffic, and they of course said MiG-29. I'm like, So turn around, nothing there. We're over Belgrade, getting kind of in the SAM range. I'm like, that's it. We're going north. the F-16s and F-15s had turned around at that time and said, "Hey, Dozer," they didn't really use that, but my call sign, they said, my actual call sign at the time, they said, "Hey, there's the hostile, blah, 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 bullseye." I'm like, turn around, I'm like, oh, he's right off the nose, 20 miles away. As soon as I turn around, one sweep of the radar, there he is. I lock him, immediately get all the ID stuff within seconds that I need to declare that he's a bad guy, except that now I don't know where everybody else is. So I'm still up high, like 7,000 feet. This dude's at 10. And I start diving for the deck now. And I know there's stuff, but at some point I got to get down here to, get in the appropriate place to shoot. And while this is happening, I'm screaming on the radio, asking everybody for their posit, where they're at. Nobody hears a thing because my radio's not working. I have no idea. And I'm hostile. I'm saying, here he is. And I'm asking them nothing. And this is happening fast because we're beak to beak. It started like 18 miles, so it doesn't take long. And I get to 5 miles, and I'm at like 20,000 feet diving, and I'm like, screw it. I can't wait anymore. I don't know where anybody is, and I figure at 5 miles I'm close enough, that there's probably not anybody between us. So I go and I shoot another AIM-120. Made a mistake. I only shot one. Second mistake, I didn't offset. I just drove right at him. If I had given myself some room, I could have pulled in behind him and continued to shoot if he didn't blow up. So I just take the one because I'm screaming on the radio, and really I'm behind. I'm not paying attention. And that dude, or I'm watching that guy, I'm watching the missile, and I see a little kind of pop, like a little explosion. I go, ooh, no fireball though. I mean, I don't know, did it go by the aircraft and detonate? Did it hit the ground? I have no idea because time dilation. So I see that, and I look, no fireball. I come back in to shoot again because he's almost underneath me now, and the radar's flashing like he's about to gimbal off the bottom because I didn't do that little intercept and pull. I'm like, son of a, so I do a full split S at night, right, and end up right over the top of the guy, somewhere in that ball, very close, a couple thousand feet away. And of course, he drops off the radar right in the middle of it. I'm like, son of a gun. So now they got probably a live MiG below me right there. Nobody, I have no idea. And this is all happening with me now. I have no time to talk to anybody and tell them what's going on. This is happening. I throw out this auto guns radar mode, trying to find the guy. I give it a little bit. I'm like, no MVGs. I'm like, can't see anything. I'm like, this is not a good place to be. So I just basically start doing a 360 spin to come back around and try to catch them. Well, in the meantime, I look up on the spin, and I see this guy up in the contrails, and that's my wingman who had stayed up there the whole time. And he was locked to him. Find out after the sortie's over. He's locked to him. Everything's good, but he gets no ID. I'm the only guy that gets an ID. And he doesn't hear me say hostile. He doesn't hear me say Fox 3. He doesn't hear any of the stuff that I'm doing. Nobody does. And so I look down after I'm chasing this guy doing this spin to get back around the corner, and I see him still headed in the direction of the MiG because he's locked to him the whole time. Wow. He has no idea what's going on. And I said, hey, confirm heading. He's like, south. I'm like, come north. He's like, okay. Doesn't tell me he's locked to the guy. He's a brand new wingman. Wow. Mano had like 150 hours in the jet. Our other wingman behind the squadron commander, who was my number 3, so our number 4 guy, had like 90 hours in the jet. Brand new guys. Hanging on the first night of combat at night. And so Mano just does what his weapons officer tells him. Okay, so he breaks lock, doesn't say a word, and he just spins and follows Brown behind me. And so I do the spin. He gets back behind me, the whole thing, and we figure all this out after it's over, right? So I basically, as soon as I swing the corner, I get a lock, I don't know, 7, 8, 9 miles away. It's the same. It's the MiG. I know it is. Same guy, same altitude, same heading, everything, although he's starting to slow down, descend a little bit. So I asked, I'm like, okay, help me out here, boys, because it's the NATO AWACS. I'm like, declare bullseye, blah, blah. And they go, friendly. I'm like, what? So like, did I just shoot friendly? Your stomach kind of get a sinking feeling. Yeah. And I figured out what happened. And we know what happens. When plots merge on the AWACS scope, they'll get the same ID and they'll transfer and go out of it because they don't know who's who now, depending on how things are picked up. So when they merge, as the plots separate, they just see that I'm a friendly and my wingman's a friendly and merge with that MiG, which they didn't know what it was because they didn't have it all together. So they just got a friendly track marching off, right? So I'm like, son of a gun. So I break lock and go, maybe there's an F-16 or somebody around. That's what I was trying to get that earlier comm to ask where people were at. And so I break the lock. I do a full radar scope. I'm climbing back up to get back in and the ability to shoot him again, get close enough. And so nobody's home. Nothing on the scope at all except one radar blip. No friendly, no nothing. So I lock him up again. He's a little bit lower, a little bit slower, heading back towards Badjanika. And I go, declare bullseye, blah, 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 blah. And AWACS goes, friendly. I go, holy crap. I'm like, well, I know it's a bad guy. But now I'm kind of honor bound. There's nothing I can do. I can't shoot at something that just said it's friendly because what if it is, right? Yeah. Even though in my heart of hearts I know it's not, but I can't break that rule. And we had no other means at the time to electronically identify them ourselves. So I'm kind of stuck now. And I follow them for a little while. We get close to the edge, back over the edge of Belgrade, and the surface to air missiles, the rings and stuff. I'm like, screw this. This is stupid. We're out of here. So I brake, lock, turn back, go back to the cap, and hang out for, however much longer it was, another 10, 15 minutes to where, the strike package is over and everybody's kind of pulling their way out, heading back north and leaving. So it was a pretty chaotic night. I was the only guy up north that got to do shooting, and I ended up shooting 4 missiles off the jet by myself, and I was kind of in the middle of the whole thing, and there's F-16s, F-15s, and it's like I'm the guy right smack in the middle. So that luck and that timing thing, right? I mean, anybody else could have been, would have, should have, depending. It's the guy in the middle of the fight the whole time shooting back and forth. So just had that knack for being in the right place at the right time on that one, and could have done some things a lot better. Definitely missed a chance to do it right and shoot down that second aircraft. I am glad. It sounds weird, but I'm glad that the guy that I did shoot ejected, because I have no desire to kill anybody. It's just one of those things. It's just another. They're putting 2 men, 2 pilots, making them face each other in combat, and you want to die, so you do your job. Down south, to top it off, because it was kind of cool in a way. Not the war part of it, like I said, but it's cool for the F-15 squadrons, the air-to-air guys. We had we got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 of the 6 kills were by our little F-15 squadron, which for us is awesome, right? Because we're not dropping bombs. It's never F-15Cs don't drop bombs, so it's only air-to-air for us with the airplanes. And Rico Rodriguez, who had gotten 2 kills in Desert Storm down south, was the very first night. I know we had talked about kind of boring. He just basically drove at the first MiG. On that, he was in the southern strike package, same time we were up north. He just drove right at the guy, took a shot, cranked off to the side, waited, the guy hit him, blew up, and it was over. I mean, that was it. Down south, I was like, oh, wow, that was kind of boring, right? And that was it in a nutshell. And then a couple days later, we had that 2v2 during the daytime that they shot down the 2 MiG-29s over Bosnia. There have been 2 F-16s at different times. There was actually a Dutch guy, if you're familiar, remember, he shot down with 2 AIM-120s on that second strike package night. Yeah. And then it was many, 6 or 7 weeks into it when there was that one MiG-29 that took off in the middle of a daytime package and an F-16 shot. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That was in a nutshell. So it wasn't, the first night was pretty busy, and then it got real quiet after that, and the Serbs got real smart and started tossing a lot of surface-to-air missiles at us for the next couple months, and it was a battle after that. So, I mean, that's it. But that's kind of the version of the story, I guess. It's out front.
Yeah, I can imagine. You didn't get much sleep that night, Dozer.
No, I did not. And Mano was pretty funny. He was my wingman, and of course, brand new guy, barely hanging on. And we went back to the hotel, and we went and got some breakfast because then we're on this night schedule. So then we tried to sleep. Right, Mano just had this smile on his face. You couldn't get rid of it, because he was just like in this. Here he's this brand new guy, and he's in the middle of this thing, and all this stuff he saw and was listening to, and he's just like, oh, he's completely overwhelmed. He couldn't even talk. I mean, just like he had this look in his face that whole morning to the next night, and then of course we just keep going. But it was pretty funny. And I had Mano with me when the F-117 was shot down. That was kind of cool. A couple nights later, because it was different, because we were supposed to fly down south, and we got weathered out. And our northern foreship was going to be up for like 7 hours, so we went and replaced them and kicked them out, and we got to be in there while it was happening, and that was really cool in a different way because there's a ground that's on your team, and the other team's trying to hit them, and you're listening to the frequency, and you're watching the A-10s and the helicopters come in and listening to the ground fire, and you're sitting right over the top of the whole thing going, can't do anything about it, but you listen to the whole thing. So a lot of really interesting things you got to see that you always train for, but very few people get the chance to see them over the career. So see and do a lot of really interesting things.